of Microsoft. Oh, oh, sorry. Is it possible to mute someone? So, as I was saying, the blog, the concept of the blog is all about everything without code, always from a functional consultant perspective. On the left, you can see some badge. So all of us that work with Business Central became very happy last year or the beginning of this year when we start to have the certification of Business Central because it was a lack of time without having it. And besides that, I still believe that Business Central is more and more a piece on the Microsoft stack. And that's why I am trying to learn new skills in all the related areas, including the Azure, including the Power Platform. So in terms of experience, I work all my life in the consulting. I start with a different ERP, Sage X3. I also work with Oracle, but after 18 years ago, I moved to NAV on that moment. And after, with the roadmap, it becomes Business Central. I also teach some lessons about manufacturing of BC in university 2 years ago. And as I said, I start my career in Portugal, but moved to London 3 years ago. Besides working on consulting, I have different roles. I start as business consultant, and of course, that after I moved to project manager, I also have some experience on the pre-sale side. But nowadays, I work most of my time as solution architect. In terms of experience, and besides the Business Central being an horizontal solution, and due to the customers that we implement in my past, I have strong knowledge on fashion, food, and pharmaceuticals, and also on service, including some ISVs that have specific solutions in Business Central for that industries. In terms of personal, I am really a food, wine, and gin lover, and I consider myself as a sport person. I really like to run and to walk, big walks, really. And that's a short introduction about me. So moving to the next slide and to agenda. This time, when I received the invitation from the Power community to select a session and a topic, I just selected the data migration because every time that we discuss this during the projects, it's a huge challenge, most of the times for the customers, and a lot of times after the customers become from the partner because a lot of people, a lot of consultants does not have all the skills that are required to run the data migration. So that's why I select this topic. And as I said at the beginning, the session will be everything using the tool that exists in Business Central, that the name is the configuration package. After I organize this session with some clear, very basic, starting with a basic case and some solutions for each case. And after I have a summary with my lessons learned about this topic, and of course that I will be open for the questions and try to give the best answers. So there are, as I said, a lot of studies that when we are talking about an implementation of a ERP, and this is not specific to Business Central, there is some calculations that figure out that 30% of the time spent and even the cost is related with the data migration. And this is a massive amount of time and cost. And I try to explain here in a nutshell, really on 4 steps, why this is a big challenge all the time. So today, when we implement a new ERP, I would say that more than 90 something percent of the times, the company already have a legacy solution. Of course, that the small percentage that is outside this can be a startup that is having the first ERP. But even in that case, I believe that if does not have an ERP, it will use spreadsheets, it will use a digital tool to store the data. And this is the starting point, and this is, in my view, where the difficult and the challenge starts. We are talking about data that has some value, but only has some value on this legacy solution. When we start to look for Business Central as the new solution, we should consider that this data is raw data because does not have the format that we need. So the second step, that usually we call it the model of the data, we need to transform the format of the data from the raw to the destiny and the format that we need. And a lot of time this modeling, this mapping is really difficult in some cases. After these two steps are done, the third step that is also very important is to migrate itself. So if we have the data on the format, after we need to run a tool to import it to Business Central. And all my presentation now moving forward will be on this part. And in terms of the data migration, of course, that a critical sign-off and a critical step is the validation of the data, because the customer needs to sign off to confirm that the data that we migrate is okay. And looking for this flow, these four steps, does not seem to be a big thing, but in practice and reality is always a challenge. And in my view, the two big points why this is a challenge is, for each step, the skill set that we need are different. So in some cases, the persons that know very well the legacy data does not know the format of Business Central. The person that is very good on Excel to model the data does not have the skills about Business Central. And a lot of times the functional consultants from Business Central does not have the skills about the legacy solution. So that means that we need to work together, and sometimes in terms of the volume of the data, it is a big number of records, and all of this together turns this step a big challenge. So this session is try to help all the community that use Business Central to give some tips, at least for the data migration step, to have some functionality that can support this data migration. So, as I said before, the tool that I will show is the native one that is built in Business Central. I know that there is some external tools that can help and support this task. It is also possible to create a customization with custom code to import, but the session itself is using the native solution, the built-in solution that the name is configuration package. So for the persons that are on this call and start with NAV and not Business Central, this solution some years ago and some versions ago was called Rapid Start Service. And now the new name is configuration package, but at the end, more tick, less tick, we are talking about the same. So to access to this functionality is so easy, like search bar, search by configuration package, and as you can see on the first part of the screen, and when we click on this option, we can see a list of the package that we set up before. So in terms of how to access to the solution is so easy like this. Is everything inside the functionality with the name configuration package. And now my proposal is to show how to create the step-by-step of a new package. Of course, that I already prepared one to be more quicker and not to spend so much time to set it up. And after I will jump to the cases and to the real solutions for the difficult situations. So sharing now another window. And I will repeat what I explained. So configuration package, we just click. We can see the list here of the different package. And I will select this one as an example that I call migrate customers for the Business Central Bootcamp. So all the time, when we need and when we create a new package, of course that the logic of Business Central is all the time the same. We have a code, we have a description that we can use with the information that is important. But the part that is really critical is here on the lines. So on the lines, we need to select to which table in Business Central we want to migrate. And of course that you can see on this example, the table 18, that is the customers. But if I click here on the list, we can see the list of all the tables of Business Central. And it is a big list. So in this case, as an example, I just select before the customers. And what happened is that when I move the mouse from this field, the ID, to the next one, the system will show some information about this table. So we can see immediately that these tables in Business Central has 96 fields. And we also can see that we have at this moment 6 records on this table and 6 records on this table on the company that I am using. So I am using in this case the Kronos company, and we just have 6 customers. So the next step to make a simple migration is really to click here, export to Excel. There is this question, and if I say yes, it will open. And now I will share my Excel. And you can see that I have here an Excel file that has precisely the 96 columns that we saw that the customer table has, one by one here, and at the same time just export all the records that we have on this table. So you saw that it was, we have the information that the table has 6 records. But besides the 6 records, I already insert manually here these 4 new lines. So the original 6 records that we have are these first 5 and these. And manually, I create in Excel these 5 because I will show now how to import. So in terms of the data migration, having Excel, after exporting and after knowing which column is all about, the work that we need to guarantee is to insert new lines to map with this format and to insert the data that we need. What is really important here is, besides the title of the column, if we move the mouse until the title, we can see the type of the field. And this is critical to guarantee that we are not inserting in Excel fields with the wrong format of data. So if it is a numeric field, for example, we are not allowed to insert letters. If we have until 100 characters like this one, if we insert 200, that means that on the next step when we import, we will get an error. So this is critical to validate here in Excel the best we can. Otherwise, when we are importing, we will get the error message. And if we are importing a massive number of rows, that means the number of errors can be huge. And this is not a good thing because we need to wait the time to import to Business Central. So this Excel file is saved. I will now show I will close this one and I will show the import process. So precisely on the same configuration package, and I just click on Excel, now export, sorry, and now I will click on the import. And here I will select the desktop, the file, and of course that in this case we are using a small amount of records, so everything is very quick. And when I click here on the import, we can see that there is a temporary table in the solution, in the configuration package, that has 10 records. And if I open this table, we can see, besides the original records that I can delete on Excel because the information is already on Business Central, we have the new ones that we have here that I explained to you that I insert manually in Excel. So after having this first step, import from Excel, the second one is to apply data. And I will click yes. And what I can see as a summary, only one table. Yes, it's right. I get one error. 4 new records were inserted and 5 records were modified. Even if this modification will not update nothing because the values are the same. But we have one error here. And it was intentional, this error. And we can see here the error. And if I click here, we can see all the data that gets the error. And we have this option here to show the detail of the error. And if I click here, we can see the field country as a value that is precisely USA that cannot be found on the related table in Business Central. And this was intentional because in Business Central, USA is coded as US. So this is a small example of the type of errors that we can get. Another example can be the length of this column is bigger than the space, for example. But in this case, my workaround is to look where it is the USA, and sometimes on a a table like this one, the most difficult part is to identify quickly the column. And I will change manually to US. And we can see that the record is already without an error, is already available to be imported. And now I can repeat apply data. And it was modify. And finally, if I click here on the customers, we can see that the new customers that I insert are already here. So this is a straightforward example of using the configuration package from the beginning until the end to create a new one, to export the template to Excel, transform the data in Excel to import and to see the result. But this is the complete flow. And I know that for a lot of functional consultants, this is the basic, and they do this a lot of times, but it's important to start with this simple flow, and now we'll go to the exceptions and to the cases that can support to use this way that I show you now. So I will move now again to the PowerPoint. So sharing again the PowerPoint. And the first case, besides this global flow that I show you, is, okay, you show how to select the customers, but if for some reason I don't know which tables is important to be the destiny table of my migration. So this is not really about configuration package and data migration, but sometimes we have this difficult or the functional consultants does not know. So my proposal is accessing Business Central to the area or the functionality that you know that somehow the data is there. Customers, for example. The second step after clicking on the functionality is to click on the help, inspect page and data, and you can see that it will open on the right side the ID and the name of the table. And this simple example was on the customers, but if we try this step by step on a purchase order, a journal, dimension, something, using this step by step, you can identify what is the table that you can use. So I just include here the summary because for the persons that will have a look for the slide deck, we have here a description of the summary. So moving to the case 2, how do we know what are the related tables in Business Central? For example, we are importing the customer, like I show you, but there is a related table that is the country, for example, that we get that error. And how do I know which are the related tables? So the step-by-step configuration package, the same way. And we have this option here. After selecting the package and the main table, we have this function, get related tables. And when we click, the system will add automatically on the same package all the new related tables with the main table that we start. And on this example, you can see payment terms, currency, language, country, a lot of them. So without knowing the hierarchy and the structure of the database, you can use this workaround to know what are the related tables. And again, a summary to support the persons that will have a look to the slide deck. Case 3. How to adjust the columns required to be imported. As you saw, when I just click on the customer template, we have 96 columns. And in some cases, let's be honest, it's a lot. In some cases, we don't use all of them. So if we want to adjust that it was something that I didn't show, we have a workaround for it. So again, starting on the package and selecting the option tables, fields, and it will show here an option that we can edit this list. We have this column to include the field yes or no. So that means, for example, I know that nowadays no one uses telex. So if this column will be empty all the time, we can untick this box, and that means that when we export to Excel, that this column will not be there, and we don't need to populate empty data. Case 4. How to apply a filter to the data that we want to import. If for some reason we want to click and we want to import a part of the data and not all of them, we can apply a filter on the package. So starting point the same, the package. The second step is really the same option, table, and after this is the difference. We have here a field that is the filter buttons, and we can click, and here we have the ability to create ourselves the filter that we want. For example, in this case, we are talking about customers, and we are applying the filter over the name field, and we just want to include the customers that starts with a A, because we have a star. So as you can see, in this case is a simple example that we are applying a filter. This filter, when it is set up, it will work on the export side when we export from Business Central to the template in Excel, but also on the import side when we are importing. That means that if for some reason we include the new records outside of this filter, the Business Central will not include that records to the import. Case 5. How to import the related tables with the current sequence. So now I am getting some new examples that will improve the ability to use the configuration package, and of course that the complexity is getting bigger. So what I mean with this question is, I just showed the example of the customer, but a lot of times we does not have only the customer. So the example that I have here is precisely the vendor and the vendor bank account. So one table in Business Central is the vendor, another related table is the vendor bank account that has a strong relationship between the two. We are not able to have a vendor bank account without the vendor. So in this case, if we want to import both together and to guarantee that the configuration will import before the vendor and after the vendor bank account, we can include on the same package as two lines, and we have here this column that is the parent table ID, where we can select on the child which is the parent. So in this case, on the vendor bank account, we will select that the master table will be the 23. And this way, when we click on the apply data, the system will import before the vendor and after the vendor bank account. And this tip is also very important for the documents where we have the header and the lines. Number 6, I know that I am getting faster, but because I want really to show a lot of cases. So how to apply a set of values to the columns to all the records. So let's imagine that we have a rule that all the customers have a specific field that we want to import all the time with the same value. In this case, again, on the configuration package, we have this column that is the data template, that is a native solution in Business Central. And on this case, you can see that we are using on the vendor this template. That means that all the vendors, if we select this one, will have the country GB, the general business posting group as domestic. So we can populate one time the template. And when we click on import, even if these columns are empty, even if we don't include these columns, the system will import automatically these values to all the records that we are importing. This is very helpful. Using this tip with the logic of excluding the include fields, we can condense the number of columns of the master tables. Number 7, I already explained this on the step-by-step, just a quick recap. When we select a table in Business Central, all the time on the configuration package, after moving the mouse from one field to the other, we can see the number of records that exist on this company. So before importing, I always propose that you get a view how many records do you have to guarantee that after migrating you have the final number okay. So this is out of the box just to support you. Number 8, all of us know that sometimes we prepare the data migration, but at the same time, the first try that we run does not run okay. For some reason, errors, a lot of things can happen. And if we want to import again to the same table, in some cases makes sense to clean the data before and import again. And in some tables, to delete the table is not so easy. So there is a functionality on the package that line by line, we can tick this box here, delete table records before processing, that if it is activated, when I click on the apply, the table will be deleted all the records and after we'll start the import. This is very powerful, very useful, but also very dangerous, because if we have the wrong click here, that means that for some reason when we import, the records can be deleted before. So be careful about this tip. Number 9, and on the example that I show on the table country, I was missing USA. And let's imagine that the problem was not a typo like USA besides US, but it was really a missing record on the country table. In some cases, the number of missing records can be huge. And to help on that, we have, after selecting the table, the package, when we have here all the relationships with the field, we have this column that is to create the missing codes. And if we activate the country, that means that all the codes that we are trying to import from Excel, if do not exist on the related table, the system will create automatically without having a record. So in this case, the USA will be imported as USA. Again, this is very powerful, very handy to use, but at the same time, in terms of compliance of the data, in terms of having data that is accurate, we need to be careful. Otherwise, we can be creating two records for the same code. And here you can see all the details to get this. Number 10. And in this situation of the USA to US, we have like a manual mapping. In my case, it was very easy to change because it was only one record. But if we have a lot of USA and we want to change to US, we have this option here. So after selecting the package, after selecting the fields, we have this button mapping that usually says no, but after when we add it and click, we can it will say yes. And in this case, we can set up that every time that on Excel we have USA, we want to transform to US. And every time that we run again, this transformation will be done automatically. This is really useful and really powerful. So we know that usually we migrate on a UAT environment or system environment, and after we need to repeat on the live. This is very handy to repeat the process on the live. Number 11. If we are talking about a big number of records, the performance of this tool can be a problem. So if we are talking about some hundreds, some few thousands, the tool is very nice, very handy. But if we start to have a lot of thousands, we a lot of times needs to wait the time to process. As you saw, every time that we import, we have two steps: the import itself from Excel and the apply values. And these are two tasks that will take some time. So when you have this case, there is a small tip that you can use to improve performance. So the first one is the fields that you don't want, the fields that you don't need, untick. Because every time that we have a field, even if it is a field with empty values, the system is becoming slower. At the same time, if you have a field that is critical to be imported, but you have a lot of fields, we have this second one that is the validate field that you can untick. And a lot of functional consultants think that this field does not validate the consistency of the data, but this validate is to trigger the code on the validate of the field when we are using Business Central. That is all about, is not really to validate if this value makes sense or no. So my proposal for master data is exclude the fields that you don't need and exclude the validation of the fields that are not really critical. You will see that the performance for the same size of records, the same table, will be a lot better. Number 12. And let's imagine that you have more than one company, you create the package and you want to reuse this package to another company, or even another company or a different database. For that, we have this functionality that after preparing the package, you can click on export, and we also have the import. So very easy to click export. It will be a third-party file, and after on the Destiny company and the database, just import. I will have a reminder on the lessons learned about this one. And if we want to use the configuration package to migrate open documents, so until now I am giving as example customer and vendors, but if we want to migrate sales orders, purchase orders, or even manufacturing production orders. So the logic is the same. Of course that in this case, a lot of times we will have more than one table, the header and the line, the header and the line, and in some cases, for example, manufacturing, we have the header, the line, and the components. So this part needs to be made. But in terms of the process itself, it will be the same. Select the tables, select the fields, update the parent table ID, and just import. So same approach. You can use this to the open documents also. And a common question, and in the cases that we have dimensions. So all of us know that in NAV, the hierarchy of the tables of the dimensions was very different to the actual version of Business Central. And if we want to include the dimensions on the data migration, this can be difficult with the new logic of the tables. And to support that, we have every time that we are selecting a table, we have a column that if we want to import the dimensions, we should include the dimensions as column, tick this box, and when we tick this box, it will mean that this column will be an extra column in the Excel file. And we can use the same logic to be imported. And this is very useful. Case 15. And this question, we import, and at the end of the import, we want to trigger an automation. For example, a post. For example, a release of the document. Is it possible to make it? Is it possible using the standard configuration package, but does not work on all the situations? So after selecting the configuration package, we have here under the table the processing rules, and we can edit and select a custom action and select the code unit that we want to trigger. At the same time, if we'll drill down here over the action, besides the custom code unit trigger, we also have the options to ship, to post, to receive, and we can use this logic here. In some cases, please be aware that when we look for the list of the code units, they are code units that cannot be related with the table. For example, if I select this one that we have here on the screen, company, initialize with the sales line, we will get an error saying this is not possible because the table is not connected with the code unit. So be aware that we can have this type of situation. But at the end, if we ask the help of a developer to create a trigger on a code unit that is related with this table, we will be able to trigger automatically at the end of the process. 16. So this, I think that is the last one, and it is really a critical one in my perspective. And the question is, how we can use this tool, the configuration package, to migrate posted transaction or posted documents. And here I don't have a print screen, but because I think that the main message is every time that we need to migrate posted transactions, the only way is to migrate as open documents or open journal entries, and after use the standard BC to post. And as you can see on bold, I include this proposal, and it is my lessons learned. Don't use the configuration package to migrate directly to posted transactions or posted documents. And I mean posted sales invoice. I mean item ledger entries. Everything that is a result of a post, the only way to migrate is to migrate as an open document and just trigger the post. Don't try the other way. It will be a never-ending story, and it will be a very difficult situation to recover, because we will miss some tables, we will miss a lot of internal IDs, and after when we start to after the go live, this won't work. The second tip on this one is when we are using this configuration package with open documents or journals, sometimes when we select, in this case, the sales line, as you can see the screen, the logic that the configuration package includes here, you can see that as this column that is the order. And the order by default is always the ID of the field. As you can see, we have here 1 until 8, and it is precisely the same. But when we are manually uploading a sales line after the sales header, the way that we upload and input manually the fields are not with this order. Sometimes we just start with the item, and after the location and after the discount, and in other situations can be on another customer different. So when you are trying to use the configuration package to import these open documents, sometimes because of the validation, we need to reorder this logic. And my proposal is try manually a document, a sales line, a sales header in this case, check how this works well in terms of order, and after try to replicate here the order moving up and down to guarantee that for the fields that you are importing, you have the same order. If you don't use this tip, in some cases the result will not be okay. Also, a thing is, if you want to move this location code, for example, to the end, there is no way to move automatically the number 7 to 25, for example. You need to click move down, move down, move down until you get there. And this is not handy, but this is the by design solution that is working. And finally, on my blog, I am posting some useful tips about this. So I include here 2 links, and I will just explain what is about. Because on the latest version of Business Central, we have a nice new functionality that is the edit in Excel. So if we are using, for example, the customer list, if we click edit in Excel, we can open in Excel. And if you try to insert new lines on this edit in Excel and after publish, you will see that this can work as a data migration. And of course, that this is not the best tool for everything, but for some static data, it can be very helpful. Chart of accounts, dimensions, it can work very, very well on a very easy way. And as the configuration package has 2 steps, and in this case, we just publish in 1 step, the performance is great. So please have a look for this post on my blog, because I explain how you can use this other way to migrate data. And I will summarize just to have some minutes for the questions. So I think that all of us should give a chance to configuration package, because it's part of the Business Central. It's free to use, is there, we can use. It's not perfect, but it is there. And if we use an external solution, we will have another type of challenge. Please be aware that that functionality that I explained that we can export and import a package does not include the field mapping. That explanation about the USA to US on the country, if we have this mapping field, it is not included, and it was not considered until now by Microsoft as a bug, is by design, but we have this gap. When we export a package, a lot of times we think that it only exports the configuration of the package, but in fact it also includes the data. So be aware that if you export a package with a lot of records, this export will include the data. For very high volumes of data, it's better to split the data in Excel in buckets and not to import all of them at the same time. So please split before importing. And the last one is, even if you are an expert using this solution, I still think that the biggest challenge on the data migration is to capture the legacy data and transform it. Because if we have these tools, the challenge is to have the right data on these columns. But at the end, we as partners, if we control this solution, if we know it, of course that this challenge will become from the customer, and we can try to focus on our side. And again, I repeat, don't use the configuration package to migrate posted transactions. And I said 2 times, please, please. And that's it. So I know that I spent 4 minutes more than I was expecting, but I was trying to include a lot of cases, good examples. So let me stop to share my screen, and I will see if we have some questions.
Yeah, hi Jose. It was a great session regarding configuration packages and how we can manage configuration packages in different ways with different test case scenarios. It's a very great tips and tricks are very great, and it will be very useful for the consultant for who is going for implementation of Business Central.
Okay, thank you for the good feedback. I am trying to see, but so I will share the links on the chat.
Yeah, and one more question came from Wendy. If you create a new configuration package and
Yes.
change the fields import, will it only update the fields shown in the new table, or it will delete all the other fields that has been did not get exported or imported? I hope they are asking for if any new fields are added into the package as a customized fields, whether this package will be available with that fields, or it will be delete entire fields and it will recreate it.
Yes. So that was a really great question. So when we create a new package and we select a table, if there is custom fields, they are included at the basis. So if we create 50,000 IDs columns, it will be considered. The problem is when we export to Excel with these, and for some reason the developers are including new fields, we need to refresh the configuration package. And to refresh the configuration package, the best way is to export the package and import again. So we need to use this workaround. And if we export and import again, all the new fields that the developers include on the database will be there again.
Okay.
And I cannot see
Hope.
more questions here.
Okay. Thank you. Can you do explain delayed insert? This is available on the particular pages. This feature is available on the page level, like general ledgers or journals. where you enter manually. But here, when you are importing using configuration package, line number will be imported. Hello.
Yes, so I am trying. So in terms of the delay insert on the configuration package, to be honest, I didn't try. So I promise that I will have a look and I will share on my blog something.
Sure. Thanks so much, Jose, for your time as well as your session, for explaining
Okay.
to our consultants who are attending for this session. And this will be very useful for implementation of Business Central. And they can have a very good tips and hands-on tips because of this session.
Yeah.
It will
It
be
was
very,
it was great
it will be,
to explain this part. I will share my personal email on the chat, and at the same time, I will be happy to try to respond to the other questions.
sure. Thank you.
Okay.
As well as you can share your blog details as well as your LinkedIn so other consultants can connect to you.
Okay. Thank you. Have,
Thank
have,
you.
have a nice rest of the day with a lot of great sessions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And next is also Josh. Same with Josh. He's coming up. May I know whether Josh is available?
Yeah, I'm on.
Hello. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. You okay?
Yeah. What's the time over there?
Oh,
Hello.
what's the time over here? Oh, it's just about to turn 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Very good time. And can we start a session? Can we check connection between and slide share?
Yep, let's go for it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Josh. It's visible.
Okay, good.
Okay.